2, 1, 0. Light goes green at the end of the pit lane. Sometimes those seconds feel long, sometimes they feel really short. It's quite interesting, but nobody rushing straight out onto the circuit again, because we alluded to before, quite a short lap, so you're quite chilled. No need to rush out there.
Yeah, really quite interesting, isn't it? That sometimes the seconds feel long.
But when I'm physically counting, sometimes I'm like, session starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I feel like I'm trying to keep up with the clock, and then sometimes I'm going like 5, 4. Why is this clock taking so long? 3.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us anyway. We're into the first part of qualifying. Jack Nicholls is having a minor meltdown, but luckily everyone's still in the garage for now.
What is time?
No on-track action. Jenny?
You should have, in your training and preparation for becoming a lead commentator for the BBC in Formula
I've done
One.
Training and preparation.
I saw those slow-mo pictures that you took when you had a cardboard track in your house and you used to pretend to put cars around in slow-motion effects.
Stop motion animation.
Sorry, yeah, it was cool. And you claim that those videos have disappeared, but have they? I mean, they were great.
No, genuinely, I'd love to find them again. That's how I must have been 13, did stop-motion animation of a Formula One race with my little toy Formula One cars and then commentated on it.
One of the coolest things, genuinely, that you've ever shown me. Anyway, in your preparation, you should have been a continuity announcer, which is a person that says what's coming up next on telly and stuff, because I used to do that, and you learn about how long a second is to perfection. It's great. Great skill to have.
Why are you always late on your counts, then?
When am I late on my count? Hang on a minute, the producer needs to call this, not you. Very, very early.
Yeah, no, it was more just the saying the number. Anyway, this has gone turgid. Schumacher, Latifi and Mazepin out onto the circuit now with 16 minutes to go. As I was mentioning earlier on, no huge rush because it's such a short lap, but we weren't really seeing the tyres could kind of stand up to a second lap, but it still seemed to be the first one that was the one to go for, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be the first one, even though earlier on the second one was almost doable. Sergio Perez improved with the second lap, but I think he was really the only one in the late runs. Even though it's a short lap, the tyres are coming alive quickly, the soft tyre, and it should be a one-lap wonder. We've got 3 cars out on track. Mick Schumacher, Nicholas Latifi, Nikita Mazepin will probably be going out at the end of this Q1 session. So what they're going to do is the usual 3 sets of tyres, and because it's a short lap, plenty of time to do it.
Mick Schumacher did all right for himself in free practice 3. He will be desperate, both of them, all of those lot, desperate to get through into the second part of qualifying. For what it's worth, track limits is something to make a note of. Turn 9 and 10. We did see quite a few track limit violations yesterday, and that means your time is deleted. And we have seen on occasion some of even the top drivers go wide, fall foul of that track limits, get their time deleted, and really put the pressure on themselves. So let's see if anybody goes wide today and really puts himself in a difficult position.
Nicholas Latifi is the first driver through the first sector. It's a 16.5, which isn't actually bad in the first sector. Fractionally quicker than Schumacher, comfortably quicker than Nikita Mazepin. As Latifi now comes down the hill in his Williams onto the brakes into the right-hander of turn 4. Turns it in, a little bit of a correction on the exit, but nothing particularly dramatic. Now the Alfa Romeos of Antonio Giovinazzi and Kimi Raikkonen have joined the Williams and the Haas on track. Everybody else still sitting in the pit lane. George Russell is on his outlap. Yuki Tsunoda making his way out after an impressive practice session for the Alpha Tauri driver, and Nicholas Latifi is going to get our first lap time on the board through turn 9, then into the final right-hander of turn 10, keeps it all 4 wheels on the track and does a 1:05 5.963. So there's the first lap time of the session.
It's going to be tight with Schumacher. Mick coming across the line now and does just go into second, 800ths down on Nicholas Latifi. It was a pretty scrappy lap for Latifi, that one. Bit of understeer in various corners. Turn 7 didn't quite manage to hook the apex. Final corner as well, just understeering wide of the apex, but then a bit of a snap of oversteer at turn 4. So the track will get better as usual through the hour. I don't know how much of it Latifi will see, but he'll certainly see the next 13.5 minutes, and he's got 2 more sets of tyres to try and improve on that early benchmark.
George Russell starts his flying lap now in the other Williams. Latifi fractionally quicker than Mick Schumacher in the 2 lap times that we've had so far. Now everybody is on circuit bar the 2 Mercedes and the 2 Alpines, Alonso and Ocon. Alpine have had a bit of a up and down weekend, sometimes looking really quick, sometimes looking in the middle of the pack, so we'll find out in the next few minutes exactly what it's going to be here. Jenny?
Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda's come into this weekend saying he's going to attempt qualifying in a slightly different manner. Not crashing in the first part of qualifying will be what he wants to achieve, but he's going to do that by building up through the course of qualifying. He knows he's got a car that is worthy to get him into the final part of qualifying. So let's watch him, see how he does, and hopefully he can just take a much more relaxed approach.
12 and a half minutes to go. Yeah, Tsunoda basically said that he feels like once he got on top of it and had a good weekend, he'd go into the next weekend thinking that he could just go 10 out of 10 straight away and then would get lost or end up in the wall. Russell across the line to do a 5.7. Looked a bit wide to me at turn 10. Mazepin's already has his lap time deleted for track limits at turn 9. I wasn't 100% sure on Russell because he was quite far away when we saw it. But Raikkonen now goes second quickest, a tenth slower than Russell, so it's still a pretty quick lap from Russell, even though Giovinazzi beats it by 0.2 of a second. Yeah,
we're expecting the Alfa Romeos to be looking as usual now, to be getting towards Q2. Giovinazzi particularly has looked quite solid through the weekend, which always ramps the pressure up on the Aston Martins, maybe an Alpine. Yuki Tsunoda, those guys that are usually midfielders can aim for points on Sunday, but sometimes we get some, the bottom of that pack can be in danger in this Q1 session. Stroll crosses the line, goes top, 0.3 clear of Giovinazzi now, so that benchmark coming down, and Tsunoda now crosses and goes quicker than Stroll, but by less than a tenth.
11 minutes to go. Gasly goes quicker than Tsunoda by over a tenth. And fastest final sector, although Lando Norris has done the fastest first and second sector of the session so far. It looks as though George Russell's lap time is staying. Vettel goes fourth quickest, slower than Lance Stroll. Norris to the top, 0.4 clear of Pierre Gasly. That's a big bit of pace there from Lando Norris. Leclerc slots into second place, 0.3 back from Norris. So that's very quick from the McLaren driver.
Yeah, that's a good lap from Norris, and that might see him through straight away in this part of qualifying. Verstappen now to the top, but only within a tenth of Norris. Perez has done a lap that's pretty horrible, down in 9th, and a mile away, 9/10 adrift of Verstappen. Don't know what happened to Sergio Perez then on that lap. He's looked pretty mediocre through the weekend so far, and that first lap of qualifying isn't good for him, but it's still good enough for 9th as Ricciardo crosses the line, because he can only go 10th in the McLaren, 9/10 away from his teammate as well. So Red Bull 1-2, and then Red Bull 9 and 10 as well.
So Verstappen quickest on a 1 minute 4.489, 900ths, well, a tenth quicker than Lando Norris, as you say. Leclerc third, Gasly fourth, Tsunoda fifth. The Alpine's still in the garage. The Mercedes are just starting their first laps now, and their first sectors are slightly slower than Lando Norris in the McLaren. 10 minutes to go in Q1. Bottas is coming down towards turn 4 now. Hamilton quite a way behind him coming down the hill. And Bottas has a clear track ahead of him. Everybody out on soft tyres in this session, as you would expect. But between the two Mercedes, it is Hamilton who is quicker by 0.02 of a second. Now coming through the middle sector, it's Bottas who's quicker by 0.07 of a second. So Bottas up compared to Hamilton at the moment, although neither quite matching Verstappen.
And Verstappen, remember, is quite close with Norris. Norris's lap is the third best we've seen all weekend, only behind Verstappen and Hamilton from practice and Q1 so far. But Bottas goes slightly quicker, but not quick enough to beat Verstappen. He slots in between the two, and Hamilton goes just slower than Norris, 0.2 down on Max Verstappen.
What's that lap about from? No, because the McLaren wouldn't have, turned the engine up or something you wouldn't have thought for a Q1 run.
Well, this is it now. The engines are in the engine settings for the start of qualifying. So this is the start of what feels like sometimes Lando's just on it in a qualifying session. He hasn't shown a huge amount so far this weekend, but that lap is mighty. To be third quickest ahead of Lewis Hamilton for now, within a tenth of the pace. It'd be brilliant if he can stay there in the mix through the hour, but probably we'll see Verstappen and Hamilton particularly edging clear of the pack. But it is a very good start from Norris, 0.3 clear of Leclerc.
We've seen this from Norris, haven't we? Every now and then, these flashes of utter brilliance. He did it last year, just put in the most amazing lap in qualifying around the Red Bull Ring as well. You just feel Norris didn't hook it up 100%, but also he had track. They've got the bit between their teeth. They know Bottas has got a 3-place grid penalty. So for McLaren, their tails are up. There's a possibility here for them to get a really good result in the race. They've just got to qualify well.
Do you have times, Jolien, where you set like the lap of your life and it's in practice, or it's in some time where it doesn't really? Because Norris could have gone, 4 tenths slower than that, and he'll be fine. He's through to Q2. Do you get that ever?
Yeah, sometimes you do just feel like you've absolutely nailed it at a time where it really doesn't matter if you did or not.
So P4 at the moment, 2 tenths Verstappen P1. We think that time is just about safe, but we'll go again.
How bad was the time, says Hamilton.
So he doesn't feel like he's nailed it, and that is Hamilton behind Bottas and Verstappen as well, and Norris, within 2 tenths of the pace. So it's actually not atrocious, considering he clearly feels like it was a poor one. But the thing for Norris now is to build on it. It's rare that you see Lando flying in Q1 and then not keeping there through Q2 and Q3 with strong performances. I'm thinking Imola, where his pace was just relentlessly good through all of the qualifying sessions. He's just got to keep that form up, keep chipping away at the pace. You can never pat yourself on the back and think you've done a great job, because everyone else is improving, and if you're not, you're going to be a bit disappointed. Very happy in Q1, but then by the time you get to the end of Q3, left in the lurch.
First lap's coming in from the Alpines, and Esteban Ocon goes 12th quickest. Fernando Alonso is coming through the middle sector now, and he is 3 tenths down on Verstappen. Gasly goes up into 5th place on his second run, presumably on the same set of tyres, and Yuki Tsunoda has gone 7th.
Latifi's gone 8th, Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Latifi's just pumped his Williams right up into the top 10. Ocon's lap is not enough. Ricciardo's lap is not enough. They're 13th and 14th. Can they go again? Ricciardo's trying to improve right now, but he's not done a personal best in the first sector. I don't think he's improving in the middle. They got enough time to come back through the pits and use a second set of tyres immediately. But yeah, Latifi's throwing the cat amongst the pigeons there. That's the benefit of doing that first run. Dial yourself in. It wasn't a magic lap on the first time, but then you go out on a second set of tyres and you're just that little bit more comfortable. Perez crosses the line.
11th. So we've got an interesting lineup at the moment. Verstappen, Bottas, Norris, Hamilton, Gasly, the top 5. Then you've got Leclerc, Tsunoda, Alonso, Nicholas Latifi in the Williams, Lance Stroll then in the Aston Martin, Perez, Sainz, Vettel, Ocon and Ricciardo are the top 15. Eliminated would be Giovinazzi, Russell, Raikkonen, Schumacher and Mazepin as it stands, which is not in itself the most astonishing of groups of drivers to be eliminated, but the complexion of the top 15 outside of that is very curious indeed. I feel like Latifi's had a few flashes this season as well, hasn't he? Where was his other flash earlier this year?
Imola. He got into Q2 and did a good Saturday before having a crash on Sunday. But he has shown better from time to time. This weekend he hasn't looked very good. He's been mixing it with the Hasses, and that's why he was straight out doing a lap with them at the start of the session. But that second lap he's done is good. And I think it's a warning sign for everyone else when Latifi's popping up in the top 10 with less than 5 minutes to go, and he's got another set of tyres to go as well. What's Russell going to do? What can the Alfa Romeos do? That Ricciardo time in 15th is going to be nowhere near enough. But what about even Stroll in 10th? Alonso in 8th? It's going to be right up to that Hamilton time, probably. Everyone after Hamilton is going to be in danger.
Raikkonen has dunked it in the gravel on the exit of turn 4 at fairly slow speed, you have to say. And so he didn't spin or anything like that, Kimi Raikkonen. He's rejoined the track, put a bit of gravel on the outside of the right-hander of turn 4. Everybody back in the pits with 4 minutes to go. Now, you only need to leave the pits with, well, in theory, about a minute and a half to go for a pretty pushy outlap, so probably 2 minutes to go if you want to be super comfortable and finding gaps in the traffic and all of that kind of stuff. So Bottas and Hamilton are the two drivers out on track at the moment. Hamilton on that last, has he just come across the line to improve? I think he has, to a 1 minute 4.6.
Yeah, he's just improved, but stays 4th. Not a big improvement at all.
No, pretty much the same lap time, I think.
So Gasly had a lap time deleted, which would have put him ahead of Charles Leclerc in 5th, and that little bit more secure. But he's had it deleted, which has cost him 2 tenths. He's down in 6th still. Not bad, but could have been breathing a little bit easier. 3.5 minutes left on the clock. It's going to be good this end of Q1. It's going to be high stakes. Get your outlap at the right time, because you don't want to be going too early. Latifi leaves right now. He's the first driver to go, followed by everyone else. If you go too early, you're starting your flying lap as people are still exiting the pits, and you've got a load of drivers on outlaps that you can trip over. But if you go too late, we all know now, you can get really held up, bunched at the final corner, tyres are cooling, don't get clear air. And around such a short lap, track position is really important to get this clean final lap.
Sergio Perez getting lowered down off the jacks and going out on another set of brand new soft tyres, and I wonder if that's going to compromise him later on, because the top teams usually would try and get through with one.
I don't know if Perez has got pace to be mixing it with the top teams, though. I think this weekend, the way it's going, Perez hasn't shown any pace this weekend really whatsoever. Bottas has got a 3-place grid drop. We're heading more and more towards a Verstappen-Hamilton, as usual, showdown. But then this is a great chance for the Norrises, for the Leclercs, maybe a Gasly, to get themselves starting in the top 3 as well, because Perez is looking uncomfortable.
Lost 2 tenths with Verstappen being on the way.
Hafer, saw that.
Lost 2 tenths with Verstappen being in the way. I mean, he wasn't really in the way, but maybe enough to get a bit of dirty air at turn 4.
Yeah, not really buying it, not massively in the way, a little bit, maybe a second and a half, a couple of seconds ahead of Bottas into 4th, got out the way on the exit. Bottas is safely through already, and he stays in the pits, so that's not going to be an issue.
Right, Verstappen, Bottas, Norris and Hamilton all in the pits, waiting to progress basically to Q2. So Hamilton, despite Pete Bonington saying they're going to go out again, I think they've decided that 3/10 buffer to Charles Leclerc is going to be enough. Everybody else on their outlap, pretty much everybody else in the final sector, really queuing up. It's quite hot, the track temperature today, 52 degrees, so not horrific for tyre warm-up, but still not ideal to be going, 40 miles an hour down to the penultimate corner.
Yeah, horrendous bunching down to turn 9. Latifi started his flying lap. He was the first driver to lead the pits. He may yet trip over people at the end of his lap, because everyone is cruising into the final sector.
We get a little track map, and it's basically stationary with, I guess it's Ricciardo at the back of that queue in the McLaren. Absolutely stationary on the run towards turn 9. It's quite remarkable.
Everyone wants to leave themselves a good 5, 6, 7 seconds to not have dirty air.
I think Latifi's going to collect him. You're absolutely right. He's coming up towards turn 9 now. He's going to go past an Aston Martin, but Ricciardo and I think Perez in the Red Bull and one of the Haas cars maybe is pretty much, one of the AlphaTauris pretty much on the racing line. Latifi is not improving in the end. He hasn't improved his final sector after a personal best in the middle sector, and that's a real shame for Latifi, because he was looking quick, and that's what you get for going out first.
Yeah, that's the problem. But if you go last, Ricciardo is going to start his lap now with 16 seconds to go. But you've had that just cruising around on the outlap, and it's very difficult. Russell jumps up to 7th. Good lap from George Russell.
Okay, so Russell into 7th place. Spits the AlphaTauris for the moment. Ricciardo is doing the quickest first sector of anyone. That's a bit more like it for the Australian. Ocon goes up into 11th place. Ocon has been out-qualified by Nicholas Latifi in the Williams at the moment, in this part of qualifying anyway. Giovinazzi goes up into 9th place. Ocon could be out of qualifying here. Check a flag out.
Raikkonen's gone, 17th. Vettel is improving. He's currently in the drop zone. Perez is in 15th and under big pressure. Schumacher stays in the pit, so he's done as well. We've got 3 more to go, and Ocon is looking in severe danger.
Alonso goes up into 8th place. That becomes 9th because Stroll jumps up into 6th position. But it's Perez, Vettel, Ricciardo that are basically battling to get through and push Ocon out of Q1. Ricciardo is coming through the final corner now. Turns through the right-hander of turn 10 and across the line. Perez goes 5th. That'll save him. Ricciardo only goes 14th. He should just scrape through. Vettel across the line in the Aston Martin goes 13th. And Ricciardo makes it through to the second part of qualifying, but by the skin of his teeth, 300ths quicker than Nicholas Latifi in the Williams, despite setting a rapid first sector, which he's done a number of times today, Daniel Ricciardo. So Latifi, Ocon, Raikkonen, Schumacher and Mazepin, the 5 drivers eliminated. But Ricciardo got away with that one big time, and Russell's done a great job.
I think Ricciardo can be thankful that Latifi tripped over a load of cars at the end of his lap.
Yeah.
Otherwise, any improvement from Latifi, and it's 2 Williams into Q2, and Ricciardo dumped out with Esteban Ocon. Really not great for Ocon, 17th, and he's had a pretty tough weekend. Behind Fernando Alonso again, solidly since he signed his new contract with Alpine before the French Grand Prix. Alonso's been well on top of him there and was again 3/10 to the good. Alonso through in 11th. Ricciardo, 300th clear of Latifi, scrapes through. No doubt those outlap preparations were not ideal, but when he does the fastest first sector of anyone,
That suggests you're up to 10th.
suggests the tyres are sort of okay. Is the rest of it that got away from Ricciardo and was a bit scrappy, but just about enough to see him through.
Just getting a replay of all. Mick Schumacher had a big moment of opposite lock coming out of turn 1. And the eliminated drivers are Nicholas Latifi, Esteban Ocon, Kimi Raikkonen, Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren only just managed to make it through in 15th position, so he will go through to the next part of qualifying, but he's struggling. His teammate Lando Norris, the British driver in the other McLaren, absolutely flying. Third quickest in that, behind Max Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas. Hamilton didn't get a good lap in either, but now we move on to the second part of qualifying, which is all about not getting eliminated and making it through to the final part in the top 10. Tsunoda on his second lap went fourth quickest, quicker than Perez. Perez's second lap was much more sensible. And okay, it was a second lap compared to, but even if you compare his second lap to Tsunoda's and Leclerc's, it's more sensible than he was doing initially.
Yeah, he's behind Tsunoda.
Agreed.
Still behind Tsunoda. A couple of tenths off Verstappen, but the track evolution was pretty high there. Hence Latifi jumped up the order. Russell got through. Giovinazzi came through. It's better. But I don't think he's a guaranteed to be in Q3, Perez. Should do with a clean lap again, but it is tight, that group. Only a couple of tenths, and he's still on the cusp of the top 10.
Jenny.
Just thinking about Daniel Ricciardo, he said ahead of this triple header he was really looking forward to it, to get some consistency around tracks that he knows, not street circuits, so it gives him a better feedback and a gauge, but this is kind of disastrous for Daniel Ricciardo. And yes, okay, it's only qualifying 1 and he might put together a much better lap, but he's struggled, it looks like, all weekend, and it's just not coming together for him at a circuit where you feel like it should be, and where Norris is currently in P3. And I really feel for him. I mean, the pressure that he's putting on his own shoulders by not being able to perform at these moments must be horrible.
And it's just curious because of that first sector. He had the fastest first sector of anyone.
It's just one corner. The first
well,
sector
that's
is
true.
just one
That is
corner
true.
of
That
the
is true.
circuit.
That is
So
true.
he's hooked up the first corner, but there are only 7.
Yeah.
So there's only 6 more to do. But the next 6 were not all that great. So he's under big pressure, no doubt. And he was good yesterday. He was very quick, Daniel Ricciardo, yesterday, but maybe with a little look at some data now in the break, he can try and find a bit. He's got some great data to look at with that Norris lap. 6/10 clear of even Ricciardo's second time. Lando stayed in the pits with the other big guns, Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. That will help him in Q3. 2 sets of tyres where probably everyone else will have to do it on 1. Tip for a podium. Yeah. I was going to say that before this session. I'm annoyed I didn't now. Because now it's a bit obvious. It's in your face now, isn't it?
Hamilton for a podium.
Norris for a podium.
Bit obvious, really. Hamilton's first lap, not too bad. He's down in 6th position, but he felt like it was a bad lap, and it was only a couple of tenths away from Max Verstappen. Who else? Well, Russell was impressive, but only a tenth quicker than Nicholas Latifi, who, as we say, lost that time in the final sector. Jenny?
Jolyon, do you have tracks that you can specialise at as a driver? Because you look at Norris last year, qualified 3rd and 4th at the 2 Red Bull Ring races, got fastest lap in the first race, finished 3rd on the podium. Can you have like those tracks that just suit you?
Yeah, you certainly have tracks that you're better at than others. Of course, it changes year to year, and sometimes you can be more hooked up than others, and sometimes my tracks that I would arrive at thinking this was going to be a good one was a bit disappointing, and other
like
tracks
where?
Well, Monaco in Formula 1. I used to love it in GB2, and then just had struggled there in F1.
Why? What? Was there anything you could? Was it suddenly you couldn't?
I think the Renault
brake,
car
or
wasn't
suddenly
particularly good. It was very unstable, and it just didn't give a lot of confidence. And yeah, I couldn't find my rhythm at all in Monaco. Whereas from the word go in GB2, I absolutely loved it there. But then other tracks, Spa was actually my best qualifying in Formula 1. Never went well there before. It was a track that I didn't. I mean, I loved to drive it, but I was never that competitive compared to Silverstone, Monza, some of the other classics. But ended up being my best qualifying in 2017. So you see, Bottas normally goes well at this circuit. And Sochi, for example, is another Bottas sort of circuit. And Hamilton does well at Budapest, Canada. It does just... Some drivers naturally love the flow of certain tracks. They get into their groove, they find the rhythm. Maybe they find a little couple of tricks here and there that they can have up their sleeve. And Lando has always gone quite well at this one.
Bottas out very early on the medium tyre, and Giovinazzi has gone out as well on the medium tyre in the Alfa Romeo. So Bottas going out so early is interesting, presumably to give them 3 runs if they want them, or like a second run on the mediums and then onto the softs if necessary. I can't quite work out why they would be going out so early, and I'm not 100% sure why Giovinazzi would go out on the mediums also.
He can always switch to the softs, Giovinazzi, and it's a bit like France. They went out on the mediums, but actually, if you're an Alfa Romeo, you'd be chuffed to get into Q3.
Yeah.
So you can take the softs, and maybe it's not the ideal race start tyre, but you start in the top 10, which is already a bit of a coup for you in the weekend. So it's a sort of win-win, really. You either start outside of the top 10 with the good tyres, or you manage to use the better tyres, have an advantage on a Saturday, and maybe start on the not-so-good tyres, but from a good position. Bottas has got a nice clear track. That's one thing. The medium tyres, there's not a massive difference between the medium and the soft around here. Again, because it's a short lap, the more corners there are, the more differences there are in the tyre compounds. So the Mercedes should have plenty of pace to get through on these mediums.
So Bottas, quickest in sectors 1 and 2, as you would expect, and now coming down into the final. Well, but only quickest in this session, actually. He's 2/10 down on what Ricciardo managed in sector 1 and 1/10 down on what Sainz managed in sector 2 in the first part of qualifying. He did a 1 minute 14.5 in Q1, 2/10 slower on the medium tyres in this first part of Q2. And you tend to see a couple of tenths quicker in Q2 compared to Q1 if everybody's on the same tyre. So potential there for Bottas might be enough. Verstappen's gone out on the mediums as well, so has Hamilton, and that is when we will find out whether it is good enough.
Yeah, another set of tyres that they could throw at this as well. Perez is out on the soft tyre then, so that reflects his struggles so far this weekend. Red Bull can't get him through on the medium. They've had to throw a set of softs at Perez, and in the battle of the second drivers, Bottas maybe didn't cover himself in glory spinning it in the pit lane and incurring a 3-place grid penalty, but he's got a bit more pace.
So time is not safe.
Bottas being told, nah, that time is not safe.
But not enough pace for the moment. He's going to have to improve. Nonetheless, could still be a threat for pole position in Q3, and will start on the medium tyres. Perez on the softs should have a good chance to get through to Q3, but with that less preferable starting tyre.
Am I being stupid? Why would Giovinazzi go out on the medium? I still can't quite. They don't think they can get through to Q3 on the mediums, or they just
use up a set of tyres and save then throw a soft at it and save a set of new softs for the race.
Yeah,
he's half a second away from George Russell, who on a soft tyre is 2/10 down on Bottas's time. Good lap from Russell. Dips into the 1 minute 4s,
and that is fractionally quicker, about a tenth quicker than he managed in the first part of qualifying. Verstappen is slower than Hamilton through the first sector. He's done a reasonable middle sector, Max Verstappen, much quicker than Hamilton. Hamilton's had a problem. He's lost 7 tenths in the middle sector compared to Verstappen. He's half a second away, so and that's half a second away from Bottas's time. I think Verstappen might have done track limits at 10, comes across the line to go quickest, a 1 minute 4.540. Hamilton does a 1 minute 5.386, 8 tenths down on Verstappen's time, but I'm sure there must have been a mistake in the middle sector there for Hamilton.
It's getting a bit interesting at the moment. We're going to get a replay of Hamilton's mistake up at turn 3. Big lock-up. Oh, massive lock-up for Hamilton right front, and went in deep, and that's where he lost a heap of time then. That's why he's 4th and behind George Russell.
Now, do you do another run on those tyres, or do you, because you don't want to start the race on those tyres with a lock-up, do you?
They've got another set of mediums they can go for, so no big drama yet for Hamilton. Bottas has pitted in the Mercedes, so still just one flying lap for him. Verstappen, I'm pretty sure he went over track limits on his time, so they're all going to be fairly unsafe if Verstappen's time is chalked off, still counting at the moment. And Perez jumps into 2nd place, but on his soft tyres, within half a tenth of Max Verstappen.
10 minutes to go in the second part of qualifying. The rest of the midfield have just left the pits, so Verstappen, Perez, Bottas, Russell, Hamilton, Giovinazzi are the 6 drivers who have set the lap time. Everybody else is about to start their flying laps. Sebastian Vettel coming through the final corner now was 14th quickest in the first part of qualifying. We'll see what he's got this time as he comes out and across the line. He did and he's starting his flying lap now up towards turn 1. All of the midfield runners are out on the soft tyres, as you would anticipate. Hamilton is going to be coming into the pits this time around, isn't he? So Vettel now up the hill towards turn 3.
The fact that everyone else is out on the soft is going to really complicate matters for the Mercedes and Max Verstappen getting through on the medium. They're going to have to make sure they get clean laps in. Hamilton, in fact, is starting another lap on this set of tyres. So he, even though he probably has a slight flat spot, he can clearly get a better time on the board, and he's got time on the clock to do that. 9 minutes left, just under, and so Hamilton can get this time in and come into the pits, get a new set of tyres on. But it's going to be a bit tight with everyone on the soft, and the natural field spread around this circuit is very, very small.
Vettel is less than a tenth away from Verstappen after the first 2 sectors. Vettel is, and don't forget Perez is on the softs here, and Vettel is going to be pretty close to Sergio Perez's time. Across the line comes Sebastian Vettel, actually lost quite a chunk in the final sector, a couple of tenths of a second, but it's 4th quickest for Sebastian Vettel. Hamilton is a couple of tenths down after the middle sector on his next run. Verstappen is improving on his second run on the medium tyres, comes across the line and does a 1 minute 4.433. Again, I'm curious that on the tyres that you, in theory, might start the race on, you'd put extra mileage on them, but Hamilton goes 3rd, 2 tenths away from Verstappen.
Well, they can go quicker on another set of medium tyres, so they've got to make themselves safe at this point, and leave themselves sort of out of risk when everyone else improves. Lance Stroll's just shown the risk because he's split the Mercedes now. He's ahead of Valtteri Bottas, who's already left the garage on another set of medium tyres. Gasly goes to the top of the times in an AlphaTauri. That's why they've just got to go as quick as they can rather than think about nursing the tyres, do a lap less, try and save them for tomorrow, because they've probably got to go and improve anyway on a second set at this rate.
Tsunoda goes 5th quickest in the AlphaTauri. Lando Norris is about to come across the line in the McLaren and go 3rd quickest, faster than Perez but slower than Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly, the Frenchman in the AlphaTauri, to the top of the times, 4 thousandths quicker than Max Verstappen. Norris 3rd, Perez 4th, Hamilton 5th. All of a sudden, Valtteri Bottas is down in 9th place.
And he's only 1 tenth slower than Hamilton, who's 5th.
Yeah.
That's how tight it is. Charles Leclerc didn't get a lap in. He's down in 11th. He got a lap in, but it's not very quick. 200ths down on Carlos Sainz. The 2 Ferraris, 10th and 11th, and right in the danger zone. Ricciardo completed a lap, but his tricky weekend is continuing so far. On that first run, down in 14th and only ahead of the medium-tired Giovinazzi. He's behind George Russell. Ricciardo's having a miserable day.
So, first run's done. Gasly quickest, Verstappen 2nd, Norris 3rd, Perez 4th, Hamilton 5th. Tsunoda, Stroll, Alonso, Bottas and Sainz are the top 10. Then it's Leclerc, Vettel, Russell, Ricciardo and Giovinazzi.
A lot of time for Hamilton to find. He's just been on the radio to Pete Bonington, his race engineer. Turn 3 was obviously where he gave away most of the time on the run that he was doing. Also turns 6 and 10, so he needs to find time. He's been told where to do it. Now he's just got to go out there and do it.
Valtteri Bottas is finding time, but he's 2 tenths down on Pierre Gasly after the first 2 sectors, so this might get him up to 6th or 7th, but that's about it for Bottas. Here he comes now, down towards the final corner at turn 10, out across the line, right up to the edge of the circuit. He goes up to 3rd, actually, so it's a very good final sector for Valtteri Bottas. Well, compared to Pierre Gasly anyway, and that's up to 3rd place for Bottas, so that should put him safe through on the medium tyres.
It's going to be tight still, though. He's matched. He's 1/100th down on Verstappen, but Verstappen has still got a set of medium tyres in hand. Bottas has gone early on a second set, and that's why he's jumped up to third. But everyone else can improve. It should be good enough, but it's going to be a bit tight, and they've probably sent Bottas out now on a set of softs as a banker to make sure that if everyone is improving suddenly, that Valtteri can as well, and ensure he gets through into Q3.
But Hamilton will go out on a medium.
Hamilton will go on a medium and cement that starting tyre, I think. And Bottas likely won't improve on a soft because he probably has done enough. But Leclerc's within 4/10 of Gasly's pace on one lap, and he's currently going out. So that's how close all the field is. Russell's in 13th. He's half a second down on Gasly. Top spot.
Leclerc 11th, Vettel 12th, Russell 13th, Ricciardo 14th, Giovinazzi 15th. Giovinazzi went out on those medium tyres. Ricciardo, as you say, having a tough time, and out on the medium tyre does go Lewis Hamilton with 4 minutes left on the clock, and he's first out on track, so wanting to take advantage of a clear track, not get any red flags or yellow flags to disrupt his run.
Down to 6th place, Hamilton, at the moment. So whilst Bottas is probably safe, Hamilton is definitely not safe. That's why he's gone early, to try and make sure he gets clear air and he can put a lap on the board. And remember, he'd love to improve on that time he did as well, because he had a bit of a lock-up, 2 flying laps on that tyre, and this is the one he's going to start on.
We'll need to not get Latifi'd.
Exactly. Any mistake now from Hamilton, a lap deleted, bit of traffic, and he's going to be under big pressure at the end of this session. He's got the track to himself, though, for now.
3.5 minutes to go. The top 10.
When's everyone going to just pour out of the pits? It's about to happen, isn't it?
It certainly is. And obviously there'll be less cars on track than in Q1, so they're backing up through turns, well, up towards 6 and 7, so through 9 and 10 will be a lot less dramatic, you would have thought, but we'll see what happens. Hamilton now coming through the final couple of corners. Toto Wolff watching in the back of the garage, as he always is, and Hamilton now puts it into full power, and here he goes.
2 Ferraris just leave the garage. So does Giovinazzi, so does Tsunoda. They are all pouring out. It's going to be right in front of Hamilton, who winds it up for a flying lap. I think there's only the 4 cars, and they will be in at least the first half of the lap, which is easier to see and get out of the way of the drivers on a fast lap behind. Let's see what Hamilton's first sector is.
It's only 1 corner,
and it's no PB. Half a tenth off Pierre Gasly. Was he going in a bit hot to turn 3, though?
It looked very, very tasty. He's improving now, though, through turn 3, and now down towards turn 4. Again, all by himself. Everybody else is on their outlap, but in the very early stages. In fact, he's ahead of all of the people who have just left the pit, so they've gone out early enough, Mercedes and Hamilton. Now he's coming through the left-hander of turn 6. Now into turn 7. He's 3/10 down here on Gasly. He's improving, because Gasly was slow in the final sector. I think that is what makes the middle sector splits look a little bit weird, because Hamilton is set to improve, but not necessarily by a huge amount. Here he comes now out of the final corner, and he goes 5th quickest, a 1:04.512, 800ths away from Pierre Gasly. He'll have time to do a slowdown and another run, but it's not fantastic, that, from Hamilton.
No, it's not an absolute sigh of relief yet for Mercedes. He's elevated himself ahead of Sergio Perez. That's just another car that's going to have to improve to knock him out. But the way the track evolution was, everyone else going out on an outlap now on soft tyres, he might yet have to find a little bit more. He's in a similar sort of realm with Bottas. Probably safe, but you never know. But he's got enough time to do another slow lap. That's why he went out early. The medium tyres are clearly hanging on for 2 flying laps.
Jenny.
Yeah, just listening to Pierre Gasly, who set the fastest lap. He still thinks there's maybe a 10th within his driving that he can do to get a better lap time. Norris clipped the curb as well. That's why he couldn't do any better than 4th.
Well, he isn't going out, Pierre Gasly. He's in the pit lane, so wherever that 10th is, he'll be looking to get it in the third part of qualifying. The AlphaTauri team obviously confident he can hold on and go through. Tsunoda's done a personal best in the first sector. So has Carlos Sainz. Everybody now is going to be improving. Charles Leclerc isn't, though.
2 Ferraris are the 2 to watch out for here. Sainz is improving. Leclerc is having a scruffy lap at the moment, and he's currently in the drop zone in 11th. So Ferrari not looking good this weekend. and under a bit of pressure.
I think Leclerc got a bit on the sausage curb on the exit of turn 1. Sonoda is just under 2 tenths away from Gasly after the middle sector. Leclerc now coming through the final couple of corners. He is starting to find improvement in that Ferrari. Out across the line, and Charles Leclerc goes up into 8th place, but that is very dodgy territory. Hamilton comes across the line now with 16 seconds to go to start another flying lap. Sonoda doesn't improve, actually, pretty much matches his previous time and goes 7th quickest. Here comes Carlos Sainz. He remains in 11th, so Sainz won't be going through. Giovinazzi improves up to 13th. Ricciardo still there in 15th position. Russell goes up into the top 10, but I don't think that'll last because Alonso, Vettel and Ricciardo are all improving.
Alonso knocks him out, 6th for Alonso, so Russell is gone. But I tell you what, it's going to be a great job from Russell, whichever way. And I think Stroll has gone over track limits as we joined his onboard out of the final corner. He's up into 10th at the moment. He didn't improve his lap time on that one, so it doesn't matter anyway.
Vettel goes 13th, so Vettel doesn't improve on George Russell's time. Here comes Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren, and he goes 14th. George Russell has qualified 11th for the Styrian Grand Prix in the Williams, just 100th away from getting into the top 10 ahead of Lance Stroll. Perez goes to the top of the times on the softs. Hamilton makes it through no trouble in the end. Norris goes 2nd in the end, but what a job from George Russell. He'll start 11th place, free choice of tyres, perfect.
8 thousandths away from Lance Stroll and an appearance in Q3 for George Russell, but it would be, I mean, kudos for making Q3, but starting 11th with a free choice of tyres is also a really, really good place to be. What a job from Russell. Ricciardo, 14th, long way adrift of Lando Norris, who jumped up to 2nd in the end. Half a second adrift around a short lap is plenty, and Ricciardo, for some reason, has had a nightmarish day, having looked better yesterday. Perez safely through top of the times, and Mercedes didn't have to do that second lap in the end. They were 5th and 6th, which looks absolutely fine, but Hamilton was a 10th and a half inside the drop zone, so it was closer on time, but not enough drivers behind improved.
Vettel got his lap time deleted, so as a result he drops down to 14th position, promoting Ricciardo up into 13th. Ricciardo in the McLaren, out-qualified on pure pace by George Russell in the Williams. Really, really remarkable, especially when Norris is 0.6 of a second up the road.
But the Williams pace, a Russell remarkable job. Latifi's lap in Q1 is only a few tenths away from Ricciardo and Sainz in Q2, where normally a bit of track evolution you're finding a little bit more.
Yeah.
Latifi's Q1 time. If you had Latifi in Q2, he might be meddling it with them as well.
Okay, P11. It's not bad, free tyre choice. Nice work.
How close?
104.66 to 104.67.
You're kidding me. That's annoying. Good job anyway.
Yep, great job from the Williams team. And Sainz returns eliminated. Charles Leclerc only got up into 9th place, so the top 10 going through are Perez, Norris, Gasly, Verstappen, Bottas, Hamilton, Alonso, Tsunoda, Leclerc and Stroll. And then eliminated Russell, Sainz, Ricciardo, Vettel, Giovinazzi, 11th through 15th. 16th Latifi, Ocon, Raikkonen, Schumacher, Mazepin. Alonso's done a good job here, hasn't he, to get him into 7th place. Ocon eliminated in Q1. It's a good job from the Spaniard.
Yeah, looking better and better now. He's getting comfortable with the team again. And tough day for Ocon, tough day for Ricciardo, but good day in turn for Norris and Alonso.
George Russell is the standout performer from that qualifying session. He's 11th on the grid. He doesn't make it through to the top 10, but a very, very impressive performance from the Williams driver to start 11th on the grid tomorrow. Carlos Sainz is 12th, Daniel Ricciardo 13th, Sebastian Vettel 14th, Antonio Giovinazzi 15th, and now we will move on to the battle for pole position. So, Perez did a good lap on the softs. A 10th clear of Lando Norris, actually, and they were just over a 10th quicker than Pierre Gasly, who didn't do a second run.
Perez, with all these laps on the soft, has actually managed to dial himself down to a sensible pace.
Yeah.
Having looked a bit adrift all the way through practice and Q1, to the point where he couldn't even try on the mediums, and Verstappen just needed one set of them to get through. Perez, through using a couple of sets of soft tyres, has got down to a pace that should see him qualify in that top top 3 or 4 position again and be a factor for Red Bull in the race tomorrow, although he'll have to start on the soft tyre, unlike Verstappen, Bottas and Hamilton, so there's a bit of a handicap there.
Jenny.
Yeah, just listening in on some of the team radios, and Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari was interesting. He came over the radio. Team radio.
Beautiful.
Nice that, mate.
That was good, man. So enjoyable. Whatever the position will be, I did enjoy.
Oh, Alonso had a nice time.
Good old Alonso saying he enjoyed it. Yeah, so Leclerc came on the team radio and said, why was Carlos so slow? And the engineer asked him to repeat himself, and he said, actually, let's talk about it when I get in. But what a thing to say. I mean, the difference between the two didn't seem that great. Yes, Carlos is out in P12, but what a strange thing for Charles to say on a team radio.
Presumably they're talking about outlaps and not the outright pace.
That would make more sense.
Yeah, because I think they went out together quite early on. Leclerc presumably behind Sainz on the track, and not happy with the outlap, I imagine, of Carlos Sainz. Yeah, I don't think you can call him so slow in terms of outright pace when you're only a tenth and a half quicker.
Or, well, no, I don't know when those lap times come across, because when I look at the last lap, which I guess was the in-lap, Sainz did his in-lap in 2 minutes 7 seconds. Everybody else's in-lap was about a minute and a half, a minute 20. So maybe he's come across him being really slow on the in-lap potentially.
Possibly.
Who knows?
I don't think he's rubbing salt into the wounds of a Q2 exit though of Carlos Sainz in terms of his outright speed.
That result for Russell matches his best ever qualifying performance for Williams, which he first qualified or started 11th on the grid in the Styrian Grand Prix of 2020, and then managed it again earlier this year in Portugal.
Chance of rain tomorrow. I don't know if he'll want that or not at this stage. He's shown some decent pace in the wet. Turkey last year, he was having a solid drive. Imola this year, he could and probably should have had some points before having a tango with Bottas. Starting 11th with a threat of rain could be good, but starting 11th without could be good because he's got that free choice of tyres and has some strategy to play with. And remember, he had a really strong race pace in France last time out, finishing 12th. We're going to have a Norris podium and a Russell point.
Just out of interest, Russell, when you say he qualified 11th last time out, he did finish 16th. So went a little bit backwards. So let's hope that's not the way it's going to roll. Just spoken to Pirelli about strategy for tomorrow. So they were expecting everybody to try and go through on the soft tyre. Obviously, we've got those 3 going through on a medium. So they reckon medium to soft is just as good an option. It just gives you something a little bit different. And maybe if you can go extremely long, safety car, that sort of thing comes into play on the mediums.
Yeah, you said that yesterday in practice, I think, didn't you? That Pirelli think that everyone will start on the softs. Even then, you're just like, yeah, okay. Wait till tomorrow, and the front runners will start on the mediums, because they always do. So there we go. Okay, they didn't.
I suppose the point of interest in that is that Perez didn't get through on the mediums, so
indeed
they have a different strategy on that way. But Perez is normally they send Perez long. He's not going to go longer on the. Maybe he can go longer on a soft than they can on the medium.
Well, I think today is not necessarily a case of they wanted to split the strategies. I think it's a case of they had to split the strategies, seeing how close the Mercedes were and Verstappen even to the drop zone. If Perez is a couple of tenths away from Verstappen on pace, which he has certainly been through this weekend so far, he ain't making it through on a set of mediums, so he had to go for the soft.
Right, Hamilton straight out at the start of Q3, onto the track, all by himself, and so maybe doing a couple of runs on this first run on the soft tyre, maybe a couple of laps to try and dial himself in.
Be surprised having an extra lap of fuel. It does look like a 1-lap tyre, the soft. The medium was giving up a little bit more on the second lap, but the soft tyre normally is good for the first. Has he gone on a used set of tyres? There's used tyres on Bottas's car at the moment.
I'll find out. 11 minutes to go. Hamilton straight out onto the track. Wasn't happy with either of his runs, was he? In that first part of in either of the first 2 parts of qualifying.
He's going to start a flying lap, but he's still got the track all to himself, which is unusual for a pole position challenger to be going this early See what sort of pace he's got. Charges into turn 1. Medium speed right-hander, gets right out over the curb on the exit, over the sausage curb, but actually the Mercedes seemed to ride it pretty well, and he still had traction up towards turn 3.
It's a new set of softs for Hamilton.
And he's done a good first sector. It's a solid first sector rather than anything spectacular.
It's over a tenth slower than Norris has managed in sector 1.
Yeah, that was the soft tyre for Norris at the end of Q2. But sector 1 is one corner. We'll see what he can do through sector 2 now. Turns 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 even. They get quicker as you go through them.
It's solid. I mean, he's on target for a sort of low 1 minute 4. The quickest lap time we've seen was in Q2 from Perez, a 1 minute 4.197. You add up the fastest sectors from Norris, Perez and Verstappen, you get a 1 minute 4.000. Hamilton across the line does a 1 minute 4.205. It's fine. It's not getting you pole position, I don't think.
No, it's barely a tenth quicker than Norris did in Q2 then. Overall 3 sectors. So went early, got a nice clear lap in, but it's not that quick. And as you say, Perez was quicker at the end of Q2 on his soft tyres, so I think Red Bull will see that. They're leaving the garage now. Verstappen takes the blankets off and emerges from the garage. I think they'll see that and think we're in with a great chance here.
So Hamilton, the first driver to set the lap time, a 1 minute 4.205. Now Gasly is leaving the pit lane. Alonso, Tsunoda, Leclerc. We've got 9 minutes left of this battle for pole position, and Lewis Hamilton has gone out very early on, set a lap time of a 1 minute 4.205, and he's the only driver to have set a lap time so far. Everybody else has now poured out of the pit lane. Hamilton trails Max Verstappen in the championship by 12 points coming into this weekend, and so he'll want to secure pole position and try and take a win after Verstappen has taken the last one in France a couple of weeks, well, just 1 week ago now, and then there's another race here in Austria in 1 week's time. But Jolyon Palmer, not a particularly quick lap from Lewis Hamilton, and he's back in the pits.
Yeah, straight out. Had the track to himself early on in Q3. It's rare that any of the front runners go so early, but Lewis clearly wanting a clear track. But he's not done even the fastest lap he's seen in qualifying so far. He's fastest of this final segment and on provisional pole, but he's the only one to have done a lap, which is slower than what Sergio Perez did in Q2. So he's got plenty to find. He's got another set of tyres to come, and the real pole position challenge for him later on in this part of qualifying. But he's got work to do there, I'd say.
Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda in the Alpha Tauris are out on circuit now. Tsunoda's done a reasonable first sector, but where's Max Verstappen? He's just coming across the line now, starting his first attempt at taking pole position for the Styrian Grand Prix, up towards the 90-degree right-hander of turn 1 that then takes him further up the hill towards turn 3. And Pierre Gasly in the Alpha Tauri has gone quicker than Lewis Hamilton in the first sector, and Max Verstappen is about to do similar. He's quicker than Hamilton by over a tenth of a second in sector 1.
Much quicker through the first sector, very short first sector for Verstappen. He's found good time, and Gasly's flying through the middle part of the lap as well. The AlphaTauri cars look good. Gasly was really quick in the middle part of qualifying in Q2. He's going to be quicker through the final sector. Both he and Verstappen improving well.
Yuki Tsunoda in the other AlphaTauri has not done a good lap, 7 tenths slower than Hamilton, but here comes Pierre Gasly, the Frenchman who won for the first time at the Italian Grand Prix last season, swings down through the final corner, might have gone all four wheels off the track. Verstappen is absolutely flying. Gasly across the line is slower than Hamilton by a quarter of a second, but Verstappen is 4 tenths up, 2/3 of the way through the lap.
Norris going very quickly behind as well, so he's one to keep an eye on. But this is the sound of Max Verstappen out of the final corner, driving to the line, and he goes provisional pole position, 3.5 tenths clear of Lewis Hamilton.
A really big lap then from Max Verstappen. Hamilton's still in second place. Charles Leclerc comes across the line to go 4th quickest. Perez goes up into 3rd in the other Red Bull. Valtteri Bottas is on a lap now. He's come through the first sector and it's okay. His middle sector's okay, but it's nowhere near matching the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. Lando Norris has gone 3rd quickest, ahead of Sergio Perez. Norris is only 0.04 of a second slower than Lewis Hamilton. Great lap from the McLaren driver. Bottas looking a bit wide through 9, now into 10, out across the line. He's got a 3-place grid penalty after dangerous driving in the pit lane yesterday, and he's only 4th fastest, so that would have him starting 7th on the grid for tomorrow's race if it finishes like this. Verstappen quickest, Hamilton 2nd, Norris 3rd, Bottas 4th, Perez 5th.
And Hamilton's going again right now. He's already on his pole position charge here. Here he goes through Sector 1. He's improving all the way now. He's got plenty to find on Max Verstappen. He's found a 10th to himself, but he's still over a 10th down on Verstappen in the first sector. The car rotating nicely through turn 3 though. Late on the brakes, but still managed to turn the car, hit the apex and get a smooth exit. So it's looking better for Hamilton, but he's got more work to do to find Verstappen, who's got a nice margin out front.
Comes through the right-hander of turn 4. Verstappen is back in the pits to put on a new set of tyres. Lando Norris is returning to the pits. Everybody else is. I wonder if Hamilton's got 3 new sets of tyres and is doing 3 runs in this final part of qualifying. He's a quarter of a second down on Verstappen after the first 2 sectors.
He saved a set in Q1, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I think he maybe has that option available to him.
Because he didn't then go out at the end of Q2, did he?
No, he saved a set. He didn't run any softs in Q2.
Hamilton across the line, fastest final sector of anyone, still 0.2 of a second adrift from Max Verstappen, who's on provisional pole position. So, Hamilton, Verstappen will all have to go again. 4 minutes left. Verstappen quickest, Hamilton 2nd, Lando Norris 3rd, Valtteri Bottas 4th, Sergio Perez 5th, Pierre Gasly 6th, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari 7th, Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri 8th, 9th is Fernando Alonso in the Alpine. Lance Stroll is just setting a time now. In 10th place in the Aston Martin. So Verstappen looking very strong, and this is kind of how it's felt all weekend. Mercedes have had some good laps that make them look quick, but it's just felt like Red Bull have the advantage.
And they're really cementing that now. One more lap for Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas. Can Norris do anything magic? He's done a great job so far to be 3rd, and Sergio Perez only 5th. Potentially on a used set of tyres though for Perez. He's used a lot of tyres to get to this point, and he was a long way off actually what he did in Q2. So Perez maybe with more to find from 5th. Stroll crosses the line in the only remaining Aston Martin. He's out-qualified Sebastian Vettel today. He comes across the line and goes 8th ahead of Yuki Tsunoda and Fernando Alonso, but that may be slipping down as those two go for new tyres at the end.
I think it was a new tyre for Sergio Perez, by the looks of things. So it was a new set for him. Hamilton back into the pits to move on to his final run in qualifying. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just looking at the contrasting fortunes of the 2 McLaren drivers. At the moment, Lando Norris is in P3, and as you alluded to, could bring out something really special if he can just get everything hooked up together. But we saw Daniel Ricciardo, the other driver for McLaren, go out in the last part of qualifying in P13, and I think the McLaren team really sensed that they could be on for a great result here. And they know that Valtteri Bottas has got this 3-place grid penalty for spinning in the pit lane yesterday, and they feel if they can start ahead of Bottas, they could potentially stay ahead of Bottas in the race.
They're probably going to be starting ahead of Bottas, because with Norris up in 3rd, even if they don't qualify ahead of Bottas right now with his 3-place grid drop, he's going to be behind Lando unless a load of cars improve and get between them. Or Bottas can magic a pole position or a fastest in qualifying out of the hat.
Valtteri Bottas on the radio getting annoyed at Yuki Tsunoda, and fair enough, he was on the racing line, Tsunoda, coming down into turn 4, and it would have just been a bit of a distraction, I think, for Valtteri Bottas. That 2 minutes to go. Everybody now making their way onto the circuit for their one last go at qualifying as high up the grid as they can for tomorrow's Styrian Grand Prix in the foothills of the Styrian Mountains. This circuit at Spielberg, a double-header this weekend and next weekend, plastered up the side of a mountain. It's a spectacular location, beautiful sunny day. Who is going to secure pole position?
Who can beat Max Verstappen? Hamilton out on circuit again, so it is 3 sets of tyres. That's why he went so early. But 2 sets of tyres have only got him into 2nd place at the moment. Still got to find a bit more, and then hope that Verstappen can't find more pace himself. Verstappen is at the back of the train of cars. There's all on their outlaps right now. Leaving a big space, exit of turn 4, and there's a bit of a melee ahead of him as everyone's jostling for some track position.
Yeah, there's Fernando Alonso trying to stay in. Suddenly, I think it's Hamilton at the back is getting a bit panicky. Goes around the outside of Norris and Perez, and Hamilton is almost racing here as they come down towards the final couple of corners. Goes to the inside, dives ahead of Valtteri Bottas as well, and just kind of skips the line a little bit and goes up to the front. So that's a bit of a desperate move from Hamilton.
It's a strange move, a really odd move from Hamilton. Much quicker outlap than anyone else. Then he slows down and starts his own flying lap. But rather than wait his turn, he's jumped straight to the front of the queue. Pretty rare move to see. And is that distracting? He's also driven right off the racing line on the run down to the final few corners. It's a strange thing to see that from Hamilton. So panicky to try and get to the front of that pack. And he's done a pretty ordinary first sector with it as well.
Yeah, it's very bad. The first sector from Lewis Hamilton. It's not going to be an improvement on this lap, almost certainly right from the start. His teammate Valtteri Bottas, who he slotted in front of in his desperation to get to the front, has gone better than he's managed previously in the first sector. Verstappen is starting his lap now, coming up towards turn 3, and it's not a particularly strong first sector from Verstappen either. Bottas has improved in sector 1. Lando Norris hasn't really either, but he's now getting a little bit better in the middle sector.
Tell you what, watch Norris here. He's flying through the middle sector. He's not a million miles away from Hamilton on pace anyway, and Lewis isn't improving through the first 2 sectors, and he's gone wide into turn 9.
Hamilton off the road. He won't have pole position for the Grand Prix tomorrow. It's Max Verstappen on provisional pole. Hamilton comes across the line. Bottas goes very wide out of the final corner, comes through to qualify second. Pierre Gasly goes fourth in the AlphaTauri, but Lando Norris is flying. The orange McLaren turns through the final corner, accelerates towards the line, and Norris goes fourth. Doesn't quite manage to pip Lewis Hamilton for the top 3 places, but Norris does out-qualify Sergio Perez. All of that means that Max Verstappen starts on pole position for the Styrian Grand Prix tomorrow afternoon. Bottas is second, but he has a 3-place grid drop, which means that he will drop down to starting 5th on the grid, promoting Hamilton to second. It'll be another Verstappen versus Hamilton front row.
Looking forward to it. Hamilton just was all out of sorts going for that final lap, passed half the top 10 on the way round on his outlap, then made a pretty poor fist at the final lap there, and Verstappen didn't improve, didn't need to take pole.
Pole position. Pole position.
Ah, yes. Nice job, nice job.
Well done, mate. Both laps were good enough for the pole. Well done.
We call that simply lovely.
Simply lovely, the car is, says Max Verstappen, so he will start on pole position for the Grand Prix tomorrow. Hamilton will start second, Norris will start third, Perez will start fourth, fifth will be Valtteri Bottas, sixth Pierre Gasly, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Alonso and Stroll, the rest of the top 10. We will have full reaction in the Checkered Flag podcast, which you can download a little bit later on this afternoon, Ellie.